Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our COP26 official side event, Call for an Integrated Approach, Climate, Biodiversity, Disaster Risk Reduction, and SDGs. I'm Junichi Fujino from IGES, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, one of these co-organizers. We have 75 minutes for having a journey to Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, Asia, to learn each other about our actions for climate change, and also like nature or like sustainability. Today, we have this program. And then we'd like to have a Q&A, so please prepare your question or comment. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Hashimuddin Modari. He's a Deputy Vice Chancellor of UTM, one of the co-organizers. So can you share the video, number one?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and greetings to all. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi, President Institute of Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Seri Town Planner Haji Mahadi bin Cik Ngah, Mayor of Kuala Lumpur. Yang bahagia Datuk Ismail bin Ibrahim, Chief Executive Iskandar Regional Development Authority, IRDA. Dr. Junichi Fujino, Program Director, Integrated Sustainability Center, IGES. Professor Ho Chin Siong, Director, UTM Low Carbon Asia Research Center, UTM. Distinguished speakers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me extend a warmest welcome to everyone joining this COP26 official site event co-hosted by the Institute of Global Environmental Strategies, IGES, and University Technology Malaysia, UTM. I'm very pleased and honored to have this opportunity to briefly address such an eminent audience in this significant and meaningful event, where we put our heads and hearts together to make an urgent call for an integrative approach in addressing climate change, biodiversity, disaster risk reduction, and the SDGs. Mitigating and adapting to climate change, averting biodiversity loss, reducing and managing disaster risk, and advancing the SDGs are the most pressing issues facing humanity, not only today, but also certainly into the future. We can no longer delay our action. We must act now. The whole world, without choice, needs to positively respond to the imperative of achieving global carbon neutrality by 2050. This is made clear in special reports leading to the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, IPCC's 6th Assessment Report, or AR6. I am proud to inform you that the Malaysian government has swiftly responded with a pledge to become a carbon neutral nation by 2050 in the recently launched 12th Malaysian Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, our success, our failure in addressing climate, biodiversity, disaster risk reduction, and the SDGs will have significant social, environmental, and economic impacts, both globally and locally. These issues are interrelated, necessitating a holistic, integrative approach to effective tackling them, especially as countries worldwide are striving to lift themselves out of the unprecedented economic downturn and social issues due to natural disasters and the COVID-19 pandemic. University Technology Malaysia, a premier research university in Malaysia, is ever cognizant of its responsibility in helping both the local and global communities advance the climate and sustainability agenda through our integrative, innovative, inclusive, equitable, and transparent approaches. UTM's core values of integrity, synergy, excellence, and sustainability, or IGES, are our unique and effective institutional response to the agenda. Integrity and synergy are the key values the entire university community embraced in striving to achieve excellence in all our multidisciplinary work across various science, engineering, technology, and social fields. And the sustainability is the overarching goal and set of principles guiding every UTM citizens in honoring their duty. UTM also sets a long-term strategic plan to become one of the top 50 world universities in engineering and technology by 2025. UTM commits to continuously enhance its global presence by taking the lead in offering to the world high-quality human capital, research, innovation, and service to the humanity. I feel proud that UTM is given the honor of co-hosting this vital side event with the Institute of Global Environmental Strategies. I would like to thank and congratulate the organizing team of both IGES and UTM on the successful organization of this official side event. And I must also thank the panel of distinguished speakers and discussants who will share and discuss their valuable knowledge, experiences, and expert views in addressing the issues mentioned earlier. Again, it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome our distinguished speaker and delegates to this official side event. I would also take the opportunity to wish everyone a fruitful and rewarding event. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hishamuddin, for your excellent opening remarks. And then now there is some technical problem. I need to invite my boss, but still there is some technological connection mistake. So then next I'd like to invite my very good friend and then very good partner, Professor Ho Chin Siong. He's a real person to make the Malaysian cities towards the low carbon and also zero carbon. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fujino. A very good afternoon and welcome to this event. My name is Ho Chin Siong. I'm very pleased to given this opportunity to knowledge share with you the Malaysian experience on how do we go about for integrative approach in planning and climate change action. Here I would like to go through about 7 project work that we have, and we really hope to look for more partners to collaborate with us. And the 7 projects that I mentioned here is, one is the GCOM, Pilot Cities for Malaysia. The second one is the Malaysian Climate Action Guidebook that we work together with European Commission, GRC. And the third one is ASEAN Climate Change Report. We work with ASEAN Secretariat, and then Malaysian-Japan Policy Dialogue, again hosted by IGES, and RCE, or Regional Center of Expertise, Istana. That's the Education for Sustainable Development. And then we have Pacific Northwest National Laboratory collaboration with US government on this GCAM modeling. And of course, finally, is Tokyo to Kuala Lumpur low carbon society system, which I think my good friend, the mayor of Kuala Lumpur, will highlight on it later. First, I'd like to go into this GCOM project. Actually, GCOM have the presence in Malaysia last year. So it looked for a kind of pilot cities, and we take the lead to collaborate with them. And it discovered the 2 pillars, the mitigation and adaptation pillars. And we also cover biodiversity and SDG. And this project involved the preparation of climate action plan for pilot cities, and it's a foundation for strategizing the green and resilient recovery or build back better from COVID-19. So these are the project outcome that we have. We do the mitigation, we do the adaptation, and finally with a climate action report. And you can see that actually all this kind of report need a lot of stakeholders engagement. It has to be very integrative. We involve multidisciplinary approach. And it's interesting to note here that we have selected 4 pilot cities. Hang Tuah Jaya, Muar. These 2 are very historical area, a town in Malaysia. So we are trying to incorporate how climate change can do to these historical cities. And then there are 2 cities, Penampang and Tawau is in Sabah, which is another very challenging cities. They face a lot of flooding problem and biodiversity problem. So we have also collaboratively choose small, medium-sized cities, because in Malaysia, our cities are all within that kind of population base. We have 147 local authorities, and we so-called purposely choose these 4 cities as a first sample, and then we are roll out to the next 4 more cities this year. And these are some of the work that we have done. We do the GHG emission, we do the calculation, and then we do the climate hazard study as well. And then from there, we identify the target, we do the adaptation goals, so that we work together with them to come out with their expectation and their future plan. The second project is actually, we are trying to mainstream climate action plan into a kind of statutory plan. This is in the case of Muar District local plan. So here we look into a tagline of Muar to LCS. LCS stands for, the 2 LCS means livable and leading city, and then C is competitive and connected city, and finally S is a spatial and sustainable city. Spatial because it's a royal town. And then this mainstreaming is very important. I think this is one way that we can accelerate the implementation of climate action in developing countries. The third thing is actually, after having this kind of plan, we need to have a guidebook. And actually, we work together with European Commission of Joint Council to come up with a guidebook with which we can harmonize the methodologies to minimize administrative burden and cost. And this also supports cities with common reporting framework. I think this is very important in line with the Paris Agreement. This is the example of the report that we have prepared, and this will be very useful for local authority to work out. Fourthly, actually, apart from this local cities work, we also work with the national level. We work on ASEAN climate change report, and we do a country report for Malaysia and use an integrative approach. In this case, we try to support speedy and just transition to net zero, and it is also important that this ASEAN member step to access to this climate finance. So I think there are quite a lot of discussion and technology capacity discussion are going on how to go ahead to help the country to move into carbon neutral. So this is the report that we have prepared. And fifthly, we also work out with the kind of Japan policy dialogue, capacity building carbon neutral Malaysia. This is another project that we work together with Japanese Ministry of Environment through this IGES, trying to identify what are the capacity building potential, whereby how we can learn from developed countries like Japan. And these are some of the work that we have done. And fifthly is the regional center of expertise. This is another kind of ESD, an education for sustainable development, and this is actually done through schools. We believe that the school children will be the future generation for low carbon society, and we work closely with them, trying to promote low carbon kind of practices and lifestyle with the people there. And sixth is we are now embarking into the new project with this Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. This is another way of going into kind of carbon neutrality with the help of smart city concept. And there are still a lot of ongoing discussion trying to identify and do the scoping of this work. And finally, I will leave this to my good friend Mayor to talk about Tokyo to Kuala Lumpur low carbon system, or T2KL LCS system. These are the projects that we have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing the many activities in a very short time. And let's follow the more details during the Q&A sessions. And now I found that my colleague now connect with on this side event. So then I'd like to invite my professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi. He is the president of IGES. So then could you kindly give the floor to him?
Thank you very much, Fujino-san. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now I could connect with all of you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. To echo UTM's Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Hishamuddin Motuari, I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGES, to this important discussion on the occasion of COP26. My name is Kazuhiko Takeuchi, and I'm president of IGES. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Ali, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of UTM, Professor Ho Chin Shong, the Director of UTM Low Carbon Asia, Datu Seri Mahadi Chega, the Mayor of Kuala Lumpur City, and Datu Ismail Ibrahim, the Chief Executive of Iskandar Regional Development Authority. It is an honor and privilege to be with you all for this very important event. More than ever, over the past few years and during COP26, we are beginning to recognize that the issues of climate change is linked to many other challenges, such as biodiversity, disaster risk reduction, and sustainable development as a whole. We must make the most out of our limited resources to find solutions that allow us to achieve multiple objectives at once. This is why integrative approaches are critical. To kick off the discussion, please allow me to play you a brief pre-recorded framing presentation on IGES views and ideas with respect to integrative approaches. I hope that this offers some food for thought for the discussion that follows. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi. So then please share the video with us. Number 2.
Hello, I hope that everybody is well and safe and that the negotiations are proceeding smoothly. On behalf of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGES, I'm delighted to speak to you all today about integrated approaches to the many global sustainability challenges we face. Friends, we have entered the decisive decade for action on climate, biodiversity, disaster risk reduction, and SDGs. How we design, invest, and take concrete actions in the next 10 years will determine whether we can truly achieve decarbonized, resilient, and sustainable societies. Leaders from around the world are gathered in Glasgow or participating virtually to negotiate how to achieve net zero GHG emissions by 2050. Leaders also recently met in Kunming for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. They will meet again next year to negotiate how to achieve no net loss of biodiversity by 2030 and 20% net gain by 2050. The world is watching. In the past, international processes, including those on climate and biodiversity, tended to be siloed. However, these sustainability challenges are interlinked. Integration of various global environmental issues in policy discussions, as well as transdisciplinary spaces for science, allow for synergetic use of human and financial resources and pave the way for long-term solutions. In recent years, we have started to recognize the importance of integrations, but we can do much more to enhance it. Integration is especially important in the face of COVID-19. Transformative change needs to be embedded in the recovery process, an idea that we have emphasized in the IGES RRR framework. We understand now that simply returning to normal after COVID is insufficient and even dangerous. Therefore, the redesign part of our RRR framework for pandemic recovery is essential. Even in short-term response and mid-term recovery efforts, we must consider the principles of effective redesign to ensure that our actions pave the way for long-term prosperity. Every action we take today can be decisive toward redesigning our socio-ecological and socio-economic systems. For an effective redesign, we need to operate within planetary boundaries and emphasize the importance of more resilient and inclusive systems that bring harmony between and within human and natural systems. But how do we turn these ideas into practice? This is where the concept of the circulating and ecological sphere, CES, should come in. CES is a development model based on three interlinked pillars: decarbonization, resource circulation, and harmony with nature, along with the Japanese Ministry of the Environment. I was deeply involved in the development of this concept for years. CES is now the central pillar of the country's fifth basic environment plan, adopted in 2018, and is being further promoted by an international consortium. CES is based on the idea of using various geographic scales and the unique resources of each local area to build decentralized yet connected local societies. For example, the concrete actions and policies implemented at the local level allow localities to thrive independently. At the same time, they interact and cooperate at the regional level to optimize the use of resources and energy and create further prosperity. This model enables integrating policy priorities within and between communities at all scales, from local to global and vice versa. A key part of CES is redesigning relationships between rural and urban areas. The growth of modern cities tended to be dependent on the exploitation of resources, often at the expense of rural communities or communities abroad. This has contributed to the widening inequality in the wealth and the power of urban and rural areas. CES offers a more balanced urban-rural relationship based on local interdependence. At the national level, CES allows local urban and rural communities to rebuild synergetic relationships, optimizing the fair and sustainable use of resources at appropriate scales. I did not have a chance to get into concrete examples today, but I hope that the idea of redesign and the CES model inspires us to reimagine how to achieve healthier and more sustainable, resilient, prosperous, and inclusive societies. I look forward to the other presentations and exploring how we can work together to redesign the future we want. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi, for sharing the quite integrated approach, and it's quite necessary for having zero carbon and also biodiversity or disaster risk reduction. Then next I'd like to invite Dato Seri Mahadi Chenga. He is the mayor of Kuala Lumpur City who raised the zero carbon by 2050 in Kuala Lumpur City. So, floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Fujino-san, for the kind introduction. Fellow panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning, and thank you to one and all. Permit me to extend my appreciation to Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES, and University Technology Malaysia, UTM, for inviting me to share Kuala Lumpur's efforts towards taking the steps to decarbonize Kuala Lumpur and achieve a carbon neutral city status by 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have the slide, please? Kuala Lumpur has experienced considerable developments since its beginnings during the 19th century. From a humble tin mining settlement it has grown into a thriving city covering an area of 243 square kilometers. More than being home to a growing population of 1.8 million, our city stands strong as Malaysia's engine of growth, shaping the future of the nation. As such, and in line with our vision of developing Kuala Lumpur into a world-class, livable, sustainable, resilient, and inclusive city for all, we have shifted our gears towards becoming a carbon neutral city by 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, in pursuing a carbon neutral Kuala Lumpur, it is important that our goals and plans are aligned with current global sustainability movements by incorporating and aligning them with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, as you can see on the screen. Our commitment to the SDGs is concretely demonstrated by the establishment of the SDG Center strategically located in Kuala Lumpur's prime historic enclave of Dataran Merdeka, or Independence Square. Ladies and gentlemen, a comprehensive roadmap has been curated for Kuala Lumpur's journey towards becoming a carbon neutral city. The Low Carbon Society Blueprint 2030 that was prepared in 2017 outlines 10 main actions and 245 low carbon programs. These programs center on 5 core sectors, which are energy, waste, mobility, community, and as well as green and open spaces. This roadmap will pave the way for transformative mobility and infrastructure, energy efficient and climate-proof buildings, smart waste management, and ultimately a green adaptive city. In order to ensure progressive advancement towards our 2050 vision, it is important that climate actions are mainstreamed into our statutory plans and policies, including, among others, the Kuala Lumpur Structure Plan 2040 and Kuala Lumpur Smart City Master Plan 2021 till 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, building on the roadmap, Kuala Lumpur City Hall has earmarked Wan Semaju for our pilot Carbon Neutral Growth Center project as a strategic demonstration of accelerated implementation of carbon neutral projects that can be upscaled to the whole city. We have taken the initiative to increase the installation of rooftop solar photovoltaic system on Kuala Lumpur City Hall owned buildings and facilities such as bus stops, covered walkways, public toilets, and community halls. And we are also incorporating efforts from shopping malls with large rooftop areas such as Aeon Big and Wansa Walk Mall. To further amplify our efforts, we are also planning to develop solar farms on Danau Kota Lake and Tintiwasa Lake. These projects involve many parties, including TMB or the electric power utilities in Malaysia. In addition to installing solar PVs, we also have planned to adopt the concept of district cooling system for large-scale redevelopment of all housing areas in Section 1, Wansa Maju. This system will help to reduce 50% in power consumption and improve the energy efficiency of these buildings. Ladies and gentlemen, to realize the vision of having a 70% model split for public transportation in Kuala Lumpur, we have not only launched the free ride Go KL bus services in Wansa Maju, we are taking it further by going electric on Go KL buses. To further mitigate carbon emissions from transportation, a new bicycle and pedestrian network lined with shady trees has also been incorporated into the Wansa Maju Carbon Neutral Growth Center, as you can see on the screen. Community buy-in, direct involvement, and empowerment are essential for successful implementation of carbon neutrality programs. Some of our planned programs are building an eco park to create a center for applied environmental technology involving water cleaning, recycling, and energy saving. Also promoting community farming in order to carry out agricultural activities while using sustainable agriculture practices. Ladies and gentlemen, as a conclusion, the realization of a carbon neutral city requires an integrative approach that cuts across multiple aspects, including energy, mobility, and importantly, the community with the help of advanced, clean, and green technology. An effective integrative approach means that we need to strategically focus our resources and efforts on the most impactful sectors via a focused acceleration approach. The positive impacts of our integrative efforts will be visible to and felt by the community, which in turn further enhances buy-in and support for Kuala Lumpur's carbon neutrality vision. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dato Seri Mahadi, for your great leadership, also the encourage many partnership in KL City Hall. Next, I would like to share the Tokyo's experience on behalf of Toshiko Chiba, Deputy Director of Carbon Policy Planning Section, Bureau of Environment, Tokyo Metropolitan Government. And then I know that everybody has more interest in the story. So then after my talk, I'd like to have quick Q&A first. Then I'd like to follow the next session. So yeah, I will move to the podium. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Tokyo is a metropolitan where many companies, including holding companies, are located where about 14 million people live. The goal of zero emission buildings is common to cities around the world. We believe that it is essential for Tokyo to continue to be a city that attracts investment and businesses in a decarbonized society. Today, I would like to explain the measures that the Tokyo Metropolitan Government is currently taking for decarbonized buildings and residents, as well as its future direction. Approximately 70% of Tokyo's energy-derived carbon dioxide emission is attributed to buildings. For this reason, Tokyo started energy conservation measures in 2000, focusing on the buildings. Currently, Tokyo is working to expand the use of energy conservation and renewable energy by operating a system based on the metropolitan government's ordinance from the construction planning stage to the time of building operation. For example, one of the measures for new buildings in the Green Building Program, which requires owners of buildings with a total floor area of 2,000 square meters or more to ensure insulation and energy-saving performance. For existing buildings, the cap and trade program has been implemented for large-scale buildings. This is the first program in the world since 2008 that requires office buildings to reduce the total amount of carbon dioxide reduction emissions. The program applies not only to private buildings, but also public buildings. In addition, a carbon reduction reporting for SMEs, small medium enterprises, has been implemented for the companies requiring them to report their carbon dioxide emissions. In addition, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government is also implementing measures to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from its own buildings and facilities. So this is a result. So Tokyo can achieve peak out 2000, and then in the 2019, they reduced around 25% compared to 2000. However, this is not the ultimate goal of Tokyo. What we should aim for is a world of virtually zero emissions in 2050. In order to achieve the goal, Tokyo this year updated its 2030 target to a new target of halving emission compared to the 2000 level. It is not an easy path, but we have set it based on the recognition that the 10 years to 2030 are extremely important. As for the appropriate approach to the so-called carbon half by 2030, based on the perspective that business activities and daily life in Tokyo are also linked to carbon dioxide emission outside of Tokyo, we would like to promote initiatives related to resource use as well as energy conservation and the expansion of the use of renewable energy. The 4 initiatives shown in red letters will be developed in each sector, taking into account the time axis. In view of our 2030 target, we will aim to build zero-emission buildings and standardize housing specification for new construction. The buildings to be constructed in the future will define the shape of Tokyo in 2050. For this reason, we believe it is essential to use the technologies available at this time to provide buildings performance specifications that reduce energy consumption as much as possible and drastically reduce carbon dioxide emission during building operation. In addition, it is imperative that the vast stock of approximately 2.72 million buildings be converted to zero-emission buildings. For this reason, we believe that the period of up to 2030 is a time to promote the transition of existing buildings to zero-emission buildings. Specific measures include further energy conservation, use of electricity from renewable energy sources, use of low-carbon materials such as timber, and development of a system to realize advanced energy management using digital technology. In order to realize these efforts, last week we consulted with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government's Environmental Council on further strengthening and updating the systems and measures based on the Metropolitan Ordinance. Tokyo, in collaboration with UTM, IGES, has been working on a collaboration project with KL since 2019, and we have conveyed our knowledge and policies to KL during this time. As Mayor Dr. Selim Mahdi has already explained, KL has begun to strongly develop aggressive measures that surpass our efforts, and we ourselves have been very much inspired. As more and more companies focus on decarbonization measures, from a global perspective, we believe it is necessary to create a foundation for decarbonized business activity in order for Tokyo to remain a city that attracts investment and companies. Zero-emission buildings and residence is an essential initiative that will help Tokyo become a more resilient and livable city. KEO and the Tokyo Metropolitan Government are in the same position in the sense of aiming for the zero emissions, and we would like to continue to stimulate each other and work together to realize our virtually zero emissions. So thank you very much for kind attention. Yeah, thank you very much. So on behalf of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, yeah, I just share the experience. So I'd like to quickly open the floor, and then, yeah, please come to the mic, then please help. And then please introduce yourself first. Thank you.
So thank you very much. My name is Gordon Rattray. I'm with European Disability Forum. I have a comment and maybe a question. So the comment is to remind us that persons with disabilities are, through COVID and through natural events that lead to natural disasters, always among those most impacted. And the Sustainable Development Goals and the Sendai Framework make explicit reference to the inclusion of persons with disabilities, to accessibility, to universal design throughout those documents. My question is, have the work that you've been doing, has the work that you've been doing referred to persons with disabilities in the community engagement? Have you been speaking with organizations representing persons with disabilities? Do you have plans to ensure that the work will benefit from accessibility, which will make the carbon neutral future more inclusive, more resilient and more accessible by incorporating the requirements of persons with disabilities in this work? So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then I would like to pick up one or two more questions if you have. Yeah, please, and then come to the mic and then introduce yourself first. Two. Okay.
Hi, I've actually lived in Tokyo for 2 years.
Yeah. Oh,
and one of the best things that I see there is the public transportation system. Everybody is using public transport, which is very good. This is not the case in many of the other cities. So basically what I wanted to ask is that how do you plan to integrate biodiversity? Maybe I missed out some parts of your presentation when I entered. So another thing is that apart from biodiversity, it's linked to SDGs, it seems like it is, about the sustainable consumption, because you put up the cap and trade mechanism. But would it actually shift the industries from Tokyo to outside of Tokyo if you put the cap and trade? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other question, comment? If not, maybe first I'd like to invite Dr. Seri Mahadi about the first question, if you have any reaction.
On the disability.
Yeah. How to, yes.
Thank you for the questions. As I think I mentioned in the last discussion or presentation, we aspire to make Kuala Lumpur a city of world-class, sustainable, resilient, and inclusive city for all. So, of course, in achieving the vision, we are also trying to localize the Sustainable Development Goals. In that Sustainable Development Goal, they have 17 goals. They also address the aspects on you actually have to deal with all your people. No one left behind. So that is the way we run the city. And of course, in anything that we do, we definitely address everyone. For example, what we are doing today is we want to have more green infrastructure in the city to get more people to cycle and walk to the nearest public transport stations. Or probably you need to walk to schools or to the community halls. And all this infrastructure must be able to actually accommodate the person with disability. You cannot do like what we used to do before this. Therefore, the engagement with the stakeholders and any groups is very important, and it is the standard at the moment. So I can just say that, just to show to everyone here, we are very concerned about getting everyone to be involved in our planning and also in our implementation of project in the city.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. And then, I joined the committee of the Tokyo Olympic Paralympic Game for developing the sustainability and planning. And then through the process, one of the key issues is that is how to encourage kind of diversity and inclusion. Even in Japan, Tokyo, it is still the good opportunity to having the softer type approach and also hardware infrastructure arrangement. Unfortunately, we couldn't invite not so many people. So hopefully, when the COVID situation becomes much better, we'd like to invite all of you. But such opportunity makes the having the issue for the environmental sustainability and also social inclusion, and then sometimes economic dimension. But how to make such opportunity more in a daily life and then or in a regular opportunity. I think it is quite important. Yeah, thank you very much. About the second question, maybe biodiversity, I think Tato, Ismail, or Yuria-san may take.
I think my chief executive later on will talk a little bit on biodiversity. But I think when we talk about biodiversity, we always go back to the circle of sustainability, trying to balance between economy, social, as well as environment. So I think it's also related to the SDG 11 and also SDG 13. And this will be detailed out later on by my chief executive in his presentation.
Okay, so then now may I invite Ms. Maimuna Jahar. He's the director of the technology innovation of the Iskandar Regional Development Authority, and then so. Right, over to you.
Yeah, okay. Very good morning. And I think just now the question about sustainability as well, we will require all level of leadership, whether you are in entry-level school or also at our business stakeholders. So Iskandar Malaysia has been participating in COP since year 2012. And today, my Chief Executive, Dato' Ismail Ibrahim, would like to share our work related to how we want to integrate in terms of climate change and adaptation and focus on biodiversity. And so I would like to invite my Chief Executive, Dato' Ismail Ibrahim, to deliver his speaking notes. Yeah. Can you link us to Malaysia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dato'.
Yes, I wish everyone a good evening and greetings from Istana, Malaysia. We would like to share with you Istana, Malaysia's journey that deals with integrative approach on climate, biodiversity, and SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, Can I have the next slide, please? Ladies and gentlemen, on the overview of Istana Malaysia, we are one of the 5 economic regions that was established almost 15 years ago. Now, this region has an area of about 2,200.
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
This region has an area of about 2,217 kilometers square, and which is comparatively 3 times larger than our neighbor Singapore. So within this region, there are 5 local authorities as well as 3 administrative districts. Now, in as far as the administration of Istana Malaysia, we are a federal and state government statutory body established through an act of parliament. And our core functions is to plan, to promote and facilitate the development in Istana Malaysia, having the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister of Johor as the co-chairman. Now, the Iskandar Regional Development Authority drives various stakeholders in both public and private sectors. That includes federal, state, and local governments, the business community, as well as leaders and communities, as well as the global industrial players. Next slide, please. Looking at the overall Istana Malaysia development, our vision is really about to be a strong and sustainable metropolis of international standing. And this is encapsulated in the objectives of Istana Malaysia in our Act. Now, this development is guided by the comprehensive development plan with circle of sustainability, which is a holistic and resilient ecosystem element comprising of wealth generation, wealth sharing inclusiveness, resource optimization, and low carbon in a continuous cycle. Therefore, integrative is really a concept that has been embedded in our development right from the beginning of our journey. Now, I would like to move on to deal with the Istana Malaysia's low carbon journey. Next slide, please. Now, in line with the global and national commitments, Istana Malaysia has been the pioneer in low carbon development since 2019 with the adoption of the Low Carbon Society Blueprint for Istana Malaysia for 2025 as early as November of 2012. In less than 10 years, Istana Malaysia has managed to complete the Low Carbon Society development cycle from science to policy action, and now we are at the stage of monitoring. Now, this blueprint now is widely recognized at local, national, and international levels, placing the Iskandar development region in constant international focus for its efforts to combat climate change. Next slide, please. Now, looking at Low Carbon Society Blueprint is measured through the Istana Malaysia GHG inventory reporting. So IRDA is determined to continue to update and report Istana Malaysia's GHG emissions to enable annual tracking of emissions and document the progress of mitigation efforts towards reducing GHG emission. In 2019, emission intensity per GDP in Istana Malaysia has been able to be reduced by almost 20%. This is the first time for Istana Malaysia to do what we term as basic reporting that covers sectors such as stationary energy, transportation, waste, industrial processes and product users, agriculture, forestry, and other land users. It is therefore a great milestone for us as this inventory was developed together with the 5 local authorities. Next slide, please. Now, dealing with climate action, we have the Climate Action Plan for 2030. This is to ensure Iskandar Malaysia's relevancy in the global sustainable agenda in preparing a low carbon society blueprint for the year up to 2030, which covers climate action plan for climate mitigation and adaptation aspects. So Iskandar Malaysia is progressing well in its commitment to Paris Agreement as well as the latest national aspiration in reaching carbon neutrality earliest by 2050. Our target completion date is Q2 of 2022, which will include the identification of base year emissions, base year intensity reduction target for 2030 and beyond, achieving zero carbon or carbon neutral. Next slide, please. In as far as biodiversity and ecosystem, we will endeavor to protect the biodiversity and natural ecosystem as our priority. This is in line with Action 10 of our Low Carbon Society Blueprint to protect green and blue infrastructure and rural resources. Istana Malaysia is blessed with highly biodiverse ecosystems, including mangroves, seagrass beds, and rivers. For example, 3 out of the 7 Ramsar sites in Malaysia that is situated in this region. Next slide, please. As Iskandar continues to pursue economic and investment growth, we are cognizant of the important role the environment plays in maintaining the health of the planet and people. We have been working closely with various agencies to protect biodiversity and natural ecosystems. Next slide, please. An integrated low carbon society blueprint supports the 4 key result areas and promote coherence between 3 major policy instruments, i.e., the Paris Climate Agreement of 2015, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of 2015 as well, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, also in the year 2015. Our efforts are underway to develop the Istana Malaysia's Action Plan for Disaster Risk Reduction in close collaboration with NADMA, that is the National Disaster Management Agency, and Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. As risk is increasingly systematic, Istana Malaysia is working cross sectors between and within institutions to ensure harmony from policy to on-the-ground activities to reduce risk. The Sendai Framework, for example, monitoring is intended to complement monitoring of 11 SDG indicators listed in goals 1, 11, and 13, and especially those related to reducing number of deaths, missing persons, and directly affected persons due to disasters, for example, and reducing direct economic loss due to disaster and in relation to global gross domestic products. To this end, we have secured technical assistance worth approximately 1 million ringgit from the Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator to develop a decision support system for managing coastal hazards such as sea level rise, storm surge, and saltwater intrusion. This technical assistance will complement existing efforts to better manage our coastal and marine ecosystems and promote adaptive planning of these highly valuable and biodiverse natural assets. Finally, next slide please. Ladies and gentlemen, before I end my presentation, I would like to emphasize that Istana Malaysia is set to become the low carbon hub in this region, and we welcome stakeholders to work together with us. So feel free to scan the QR code for the Istana Malaysia Greenhouse Gas Inventory for 2018 and 2019 report, which we will be launching very soon, and other information on Istana Malaysia. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato' Ismail Ibrahim, for sharing kind of the not only the low carbon development technology, but also like a biodiversity approach, and also kind of inclusive development. Thank you so much. Okay, last but not least, I'd like to invite Yuria-san. She's a policy manager of DKI Jakarta government. So let's move to the Jakarta. So over to you.
Shall I speak here or the,
yeah.
Just here,
yeah? So please pass this. So please share the number, last slide.
Yeah.
This one.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Mayor, Professor Ho, and Ma'am. So, on behalf of the DKI Jakarta government, I'm so excited to share with you actually the several experience from Jakarta about the integrated approach of climate, biodiversity, and also the sustainable development goals. So if you look at the SDGs, we look at the Paris Agreement, so there are so many international how you call it, the agreements or documents that are out there for a city government. So from the perspective of the city government, at the first place, when we see the SDGs and Paris agreements, the colleagues in the officials in the local government, they see it as a burden, to be honest, a burden. And what is it? Why we have the sustainable development goals, why we have this and that in just, oh, sorry, thank you. And the time frame is sometimes not aligned with what we have in the local level, because we already have a development planning mechanism that is ongoing with their own terms, and it's aligned with the political administration as well. So when they see it, it's actually a burden. But now the paradigm is kind of shift. It's not seen as a burden anymore, but it's actually a guidelines how we can create a livable living environment for Jakarta's inhabitants that is currently 10 million during the day, 10 million during night, and 12 million during the day. So you may see that why is it 2 million differences? Because there are 2 million people that travel from outside Jakarta to inner Jakarta to work, to study, and of course during the pandemic it cannot happen, so the population is remain 10 million. But if you look at the greater Jakarta itself, it consists of the agglomeration of 5 different municipalities, and it is actually summed up into 30 million people, and it's the largest metropolitan areas in Indonesia. So with this kind of big responsibility, and the DKI Jakarta government started to think, how can we kind of save, because we are actually a very significant in the climate risk, because we are located in the delta cities on the Java Sea, and also we have 13 rivers running through from the southern part of the Jakarta to the northern part, which is the sea. And you can see in the news maybe for a couple of years later back that every 5 years we have a big flood, and it affects the economy as well. And nonetheless, the disabilities and also the marginal communities that one of the participants pointed out in the beginning. So because of that, actually we started to have the climate mitigation adaptation since 2012. Yeah, since 2012 we have the climate adaptation and mitigation actions. But then during the time when we see the implementation, we see that there's a sort of the governmental issues that is lying on the ground, that then we have to solve the problem. So when the unit is created by the current government, we have the governor unit sees that there's this kind of issue that should be solved very soon if we want to work even further and faster to catch up with the deadline and also the risk that is happening and exposes almost every day. So what we do is since 2018 and 2019, if you see on the screen, this is our journey. There's been a kind of shift where finally we can collect all the stakeholders that are interested in Jakarta. There's academics, there's universities, there's NGOs, communities, and others, and business sectors as well, and also national government, and we create the climate task force, and we have 4 until 5, how you call this, small units that is responsible for ongoing special topics. For example, we have mitigation, we have adaptation, finance, we have public participation, and also research and innovations. And I think IGES is one of the research and innovation task force as well. And this task force, since it is, so we have a sort of a long journey since 2018 to have this kind of task force. And finally, last year we have launched it, and we come up to the agreement that we have this task force, and it's legalized by the governor himself, and it is run, and even though we only have been 1 year to have the task force, but the task force is very active. We have the 2 times meeting in 1 year, and every meeting we have actually have a set of regulation, and it's actually already resulted into 2 set of regulation that I would like to launch to this afternoon as well, which is the first one, if you see in 2021, is the climate actions quick wins. So it's a quick wins until 2022 because it's also the end of our medium-term development plan in Jakarta. And also we have a set of regulations that are secure for even multi-years and even longer until 2030, which is the long-term development plan for a low-carbon development plan. So that's how we try to secure the channel. We try to secure the channel for the ongoing climate actions that are happening in the city, multi-years, and if the administration changes, it still keep going with the same phases. So next slide, please.
Please. Okay.
Yes, for all of you who would like to know what Jakarta is doing at the moment, what is the ongoing initiative, we already have the website, which is Jakarta Rendah Emisi, or the Low Emission Jakarta. So this is the slides. There's a QR code that you can scan as well, that you can see what Jakarta is doing. We have public transportation, just like what Kuala Lumpur has done as well. And the green building is in collaboration with the Tokyo municipal government as well, and waste management, and also the adaptation actions, which we call it the Climate Kampong. So it is an initiative that targeted the low-income neighborhood in Jakarta. They usually live in the kampong, we call it, so there's mitigation and adaptation, and it is aimed to increase the adaptation level of the low-income neighborhood who live in Jakarta. Next. And this is some of the results that I mentioned to you earlier, the result of the multi-stakeholder collaborations, which is we have a compilation of the best practices that is in launch until 2021 recently, and also the quick wins of climate actions and the climate nationality low carbon development plan that is actually a sum up of the studies that happened prior and collaboration with international stakeholders as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Yuria-san, for your also the great activity in Jakarta, and also the thank you for bringing your material to the COP26 for sharing your initiative. Okay, so we still have 5 minutes, and so if we have any quick questions or comments, I'd like to have 1 or 2 quick comments, questions from the floor. If you have, oh yeah, please, and then introduce yourself first.
Hi there, my name is Niall, and I'm an engineering student at the University of Edinburgh. And I was just wondering in terms of biodiversity, in a lot of cities that's been totally wiped out in the previous decades. I was wondering what restorative actions you plan to take to further biodiversity in urban regions.
Thank you very much. And then if, yeah, please come to the mic, and then please introduce yourself first.
Actually, I have a question for all the speakers. In which way do you assess and you see what are the impacts of adaptation and mitigation activities? If you have a set of indicators, and which way you see the concrete impact of your actions? Thank you.
Okay, any other? Okay, and then we have 4 minutes. So from Yuria-san, just 1 word, or you can choose both or just 1, but just 1 word, then like 30 seconds each to respond to the questions and also your final remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fujino. So the first question about the biodiversity in an urban region. So Jakarta already think about it. One of the initiatives that is ongoing right now, if I may answer you with the illustration. So Jakarta currently have a set of the spatial remote sensing system that can tag one single vegetation and trees in Jakarta, and then we can see it from the city hall that this is the trees that are there in that position, and so on and so forth. So we are now collecting the data of it through the spatial sensing, and the aim for this initiative is actually to see which areas that is still lacking of trees and greeneries in the city. So we can shift our finances, we allocate our resources to develop and plan better the area for having greeneries and diversity. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, and apparently with this kind of initiative, so before the idea is just making it to see how the green area spaces are lacking in the city, but when we look at it and we implement it throughout the years, we see that a lot of people like to go to the parks, and we can see the insects and others, birds that we cannot see previously in Jakarta. Now we can see it. So children really like to go to the parks. So thank God that the COVID-19 pandemic is slowing down in Jakarta, so people can go to the parks again, having fun there. So that's one of the things. So the idea behind it is why we have the spatial remote sensing is because in the city hall, we have identified all single assets with a different barcode. And we think that why we don't have the same for vegetation and trees. So we can see if people just cut it without any permission from the city, and then they can be fined, or we can replace it with another one, right? So this is the way of thinking that we use. Like we have assets and we identified it, so we use trees and vegetation as assets to the city. And second.
Okay. We only have 1 minute 40 seconds something. Yeah, so thank you very much. And then I also would like to share the kind of other initiative. So Charles, please, and then the initiative in Mua City. Yeah, just in 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm glad to have this 1 minute to just quickly probably share with you, apart from some of the projects that we have done in bigger cities, the example of like capital city or even for Istana, Malaysia, we have also extended our activities to cover smaller cities, medium-sized cities and so on, especially in the interest of leaving no one behind. So that's why we actually also just 2 years ago started off a project with the Department of Town and Country Planning in Malaysia to prepare a local plan for the district of Muar. And the way we prepared the local plan, we actually tried to do the full mainstreaming of the low carbon approaches within the local plan. And it's among the first that in our region, I think, where we actually rethought about how to innovatively structure and also think about how to integrate community participation and so on. So again, part of the integrative thing, and to make sure that the plan actually, once it's gazetted, then it becomes the statutory rule that will actually control development that will happen in the district. And that's one of the way of how we actually do science to policy making into real action. That's all the time I have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And then I believe that still, we need to have more discussion, but the time is up. And then let's continue the discussion. And then we'd like to share our information at our website or UNFCCC side event website. So thank you very much for coming. And then thank you for being together with us. And then let's work together for the better life and better climate and better society, better planet. So thank you so much.
Thank you.